I told you I finished a new book. So today's review is Away by Megan Freeman. And you can see up in the very top it says Companion to the New York Times bestseller Alone. Now I haven't read Alone before, and I didn't feel like it was actually necessary. This is a middle grade book, and it was a really interesting premise, especially given current times. So in this book you have a situation that is unfolding in Colorado. There are lots of troops present, there's curfews that are going on, and all of a sudden the government comes in and tells everybody there's an emergency situation and everybody needs to evacuate. We're going to relocate you to these emergency relocation centers, which are essentially military camps that are repurposed for housing civilians. The story is told from the point of view of several different preteen or teen humans, kids, I guess. And it's interesting how the story bounces between the different viewpoints. You have a young girl, middle school age, who wants to be a journalist, and her point of view is told in the perspective of writing these letters to her journalist aunt, who is not with them in Colorado. She's abroad. There is a teen boy, who wants to be a filmmaker. And so his point of view is given in the form of a diary that he writes to catalog his ideas about filmmaking, and almost like he's writing scenes. So his point of view will start, the scene is the relocation camp, midday, sun is high, like it describes the scene almost like you would see in a script. You have a teen boy who grew up on a farm, and he loses track of his dad during the process. So his is in terms of observations, like these short observations of things that are going on. And then you have another teen girl who wants to be a doctor, and her point of view is almost told in verse, almost kind of like it's poetry, almost the way it flows. So you have these four main kid characters. They are probably the most susceptible to what's going on because they have zero control. I mean, obviously the adults in this case don't have control of the fact that they're being relocated, but the kids have even less control because not only do they have to do what their parents tell them, they're at the whims of the government and all of this as well. But the kids start getting suspicious that things are not what they seem, and the government is not telling them the truth about why they have been relocated to this camp. And the story is told over the span of 2.5 years. So they do their own research and their own digging, and they start investigating, basically doing investigative journalism into why their families have been relocated. And is the government lying when they say that the towns they come from are now uninhabitable? It was such a well done book. I was so engaged listening to this book the whole time. I wanted to know what the kids wanted to know. Is this legit? Is the government lying to them? I can't imagine being a teen and living in this essentially what's an internment camp for years. And then the lesson about being engaged and having finding control where you can find control, asking the questions, being educated, and when you find things that are amiss, holding those in power accountable to what they're doing and what they're saying. And the fact that these kids have that ability and the wherewithal to do that, I thought was really cool. Especially, we're living in a time that's very uncertain, and there's a lot of people that are very scared right now. And I think for kids, kids know what's going on. They hear, whether it's just they hear parents talking, or they hear adults talking, or they hear clips of the news, or what's on the radio, or kids know. And especially young adults, teenagers, preteens, I think they know more than we give them credit for. And so this book, I think, is really it's almost I felt like it could be a calming thing of, again, finding that power where you can, even when you have no control over your situation, and trying to do the right thing. And it just was really, really well done. I loved the different point of views. I actually really liked the filmmaker point of view. I feel like listening to an audiobook, the filmmaker part of it was a quick snapshot of here's the scene, here's the people, him describing like this character and this character sit at a table reviewing the notes, like boom, picture was in my head, I could picture what was happening in that scene right away. So it was really neat and something I'd never seen before. Like I said, I have not read Alone. You don't need to read Alone in order to enjoy and understand this book. However, I now want to go read Alone because I believe Alone tells the other side of this story. This girl who, her whole town is evacuated and she is somehow left behind, and she's needs to survive in one of these uninhabitable zones. So I definitely want to find that book and read that because I really enjoyed this one, and now I really want to go read Alone as well. So, excuse me. So yes, this is a really good book. Again, I know it's a kid grade, it's like middle grade book, it's a kid's book. You don't need to be a kid to enjoy kids' books. It's just fun to read all these different stories and all these different viewpoints. And I would definitely, I think this is a really good one to recommend. And if you have kids that like to read, if you have middle grade, kids or high school kids that like to read, this is a good one. I think I think they will inevitably draw connections between what they read and what they are experiencing and seeing in their current lives, which only just engages people more as readers, because you can read to understand and learn about your world, and you can read to escape your world. I like to do both, and in this one I think it's definitely a matter of reading, and your brain will automatically start making those connections between what you are reading and what you are seeing in everyday life, which is, I think, can be really helpful for kids especially. It's why we are such advocates of representation and diversity in reading material, because to see yourself reflected on page can be so life altering. And this is one of those books I think that will do that. I felt like there was good representation in this book. It's very applicable to current day. I think this is just all around a really, really good book. So there is the newest review. Hopefully I have another one here soon. I've got a couple of books that I'm working on, but we are also in the peak of competition season for my daughter's sports. So things like weekends aren't really as free as they used to be when we're doing traveling and stuff like that. So have a good rest of your day. I'll hopefully be back on here soon with some more reviews or updates or whatever. But yeah, thanks again for hanging in there and watching the reviews. Bye.